Hello everyone, my name is Valor, and in this video we're going to be talking about plot armor's top 10 strongest sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen. A video I was sent recently and told that very interesting opinions were mentioned in this video. So this is going to be my raw reactions, similar to the Broken Ronin video. It's going to be a kind of debunk, I guess, if he says anything that's particularly egregious. And we'll just go through it and see what he says. Before we start this video though, I want to make it clear that I don't recommend like attacking plot armor in any way for the things he says or the things that he's going to say. I make this video just in the spirit of, you know, spreading correct information and not misinformation. I think that the community would benefit from having the correct opinion and not being overly ignorant about certain things. Also, around 5-ish of my videos were taken down on a copyright claim by Shueisha. I don't know how to resolve that. So that's why like 5 videos on my channel just randomly disappeared. I'm trying to resolve it, but they may never be coming back. I do have a new video in the works, a collab. It's gonna be all edited up, nice and pretty. Stay tuned for that one. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification icon thing, whatever it is. I don't care. Just press the button and you'll get the notification when that video comes out. Should be out probably next week time, but for the meantime, you can expect more videos like this, more debunks. If you have anything you want me to debunk or react to, just leave it in the comment or tell me in the comments. You know, I'll take a look at it, and you know, maybe sometime in the future I'll stream it too. So well, let's just go right into it and see what we get.
Jujutsu sorcerers are rare. Even in Japan, their homeland, only a few hundred still exist in the modern era. But even within such a small group, their abilities vary wildly. From straw dolls to shikigami, few curse techniques work the same way. That makes it hard to compare sorcerers' powers and skills. When one man makes dolls and the other man plays a mean guitar, how do you know which is better at using cursed energy? Well, never let it be said that we here at Plot Armor shy away from a challenge. In this video,
so he thinks it's like a challenge to determine who's better at using cursed energy, which is kind of true. I agree with him on that actually. It's pretty difficult to determine who is better at using cursed energy because there's so many factors when it comes to cursed energy. I'm not like refuting anything he's saying here. I'm just expanding on that particular phrase because I think it's of interest. Cursed energy itself is very difficult to actually gauge. How skilled someone is at using cursed energy is heavily context dependent, and it requires a lot of thorough investigation into the deeper context of a scene and the deeper state of a character at any given time. Yuji being a prime example in the Mahito fight, you'll notice that his cursed energy flares in very odd ways throughout that entire fight after he loses his resolve, right? So Yuta talks about how or Yuji talks about how an elite cast energy flow is kind of like a foil around the body. It's kind of like a suit of armor. It flows around the entire body and makes it almost impossible to predict where the attack is coming from. But a basic CE flow is very predictable because it's all centered on one part of the body, like on their fists. And you'll notice, especially later on in the fight, especially in ISB, Instant Distorted Body of Killing, Mahito's true form, that his cast energy is constantly switching between his fist and like his entire body, which can imply that he doesn't actually know, or he doesn't actually know. He's not in the right state of mind to where he can actually manipulate his cursed energy flow like an elite sorcerer. And we know he can do it because he does it in the Goodwill arc. When he goes to find Mekamaru and he punches down a wall, we see his cursed energy flow is encircling his entire body. And we also see it again in that ISB fight. At certain points, his cursed energy encompasses his entire body. Again, I'm not refuting anything he's saying here. I just found it interesting, and I actually agree with him on that it is pretty difficult to gauge how good a sorcerer is at using cast energy at any given time.
We're going to be counting down the top 10 greatest Jujutsu sorcerers. People or object, he shouldn't be discounted in a fight. But
I skipped
number 10. At number 10, we have Mr. Boogie Woogie himself, Aoi Todo, a grade 1 sorcerer.
Just a quick preface before we continue any deeper. I'm only going to be judging this based off of the list itself, right? So I'm not going to be talking about, why isn't Ghetto here? Or why isn't this person above this person? I'm only going to be doing it within the list itself. So I'm only going to be talking about the characters in this list. I'm not going to bring out any external characters that aren't mentioned on this list, just for convenience sake. Otherwise, I'm going to be here for a very long time.
Todo has proven himself in repeated battles against grade 1 cursed spirits during the Night of 100 Demons, even taking out a special grade without assistance. Since then, he has gone head to head with the disaster curses Hanami and Mahito. His legend has spread even beyond Kyoto High, a mountain of strength and endurance who has fought everyone that dared try and stop him. On top of that, while he really does give off that vibe, Todo isn't just some muscle-headed brute. Boogie Woogie, his curse technique, is very technical, letting him swap two people or objects with a clap of his hands while both parties maintain their momentum. Todo chooses his uses of it carefully, making calculated, limited swaps rather than spamming the power to overwhelm his opponents. He is just as willing to fake out his opponents by not using the technique to gain an advantage. He's got brains when he cares to use them. Well, Todo's probably the biggest victim of that stipulation at the beginning. With Boogie Woogie unusable, his power has taken a nosedive. He's still insane or expand.
Yeah, so he's doing it, like you said, off of current 186 characters, so Todo without his Boogie Woogie technique, which is kind of odd. Generally we gauge characters at their peak, but I mean, it's his list. He's deciding to take them at their current values. It kind of devalues a lot of the more impressive things Sun Sorcerers did, because he's not using dead characters, and he's not using or he's just using people that are alive, which is very odd. I think dead characters still very relevant when it comes to power scaling, or when it comes to determining the strength order of a list. But if you want to make it only a live sorceress, that's perfectly fine. But it doesn't seem like he's saying anything of note here. It's just all he fought Hanami. He killed a couple grade 1s, killed a special grade. Special grades vary wildly in strength. All we know is that they're above every grade 1, but grade 1s are pretty often shown to be really fodder in Jujutsu Kaisen. They're almost always just casually one shot by people like Yuji, Megumi, etc., etc. There's very, very rare instances of grade 1s even being of any threat, and they mostly come from hidden inventory. When Nanami is a grade 1, it killed my friend, no. So grade 1s aren't particularly hyped up, and special grades are only really where the actually good power ranking comes from, and they vary so wildly that you just have no idea how strong the special grade that Todo fought and what its strength is. It could have been really strong. It could have been completely fodder. It seems like Hanami is probably stronger than it, considering that Hanami could fight Todo and Yuji at the same time, and Todo couldn't kill Hanami, but Todo could kill that special grade by himself. So yeah, Hanami's probably stronger, which means Yuji's probably stronger than that, because Yuji was kind of soloing Hanami for the most part. Yuji's soloing Hanami? That's not true. Todo was there, but all Todo really did was just swap Yuji and Hanami's position a couple times. Extreme oversimplification there, but Yuji was definitely the one that was doing the most work there. Not to discredit Todo in any way, he still scales to Hanami, and he's still impressive because he could fight Hanami, but Yuji is definitely the takeaway from that fight. That was definitely Yuji's fight, I'd say. Which ties into his next placement, actually, I think, which was Yuji.
Exercise and learning. He learned Curse Spirit tracking from Nanami, he worked out Black Flash with help from Todo, and has been consistent with his Jujutsu training. So why isn't he higher ranked here? Well, two reasons. Firstly, Yuji hasn't managed to turn his skills at Jujutsu into anything beyond a direct punch. He is very...
So, People are gonna criticize me again for constantly pausing the video, but he gave his reasoning. He gave his like conclusion there to this particular argument, and he's gonna give his like premises to it next, or his support, reasoning, etc., etc. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is the conclusion itself. So his conclusion is that he's not higher because all he can do is punch, right? All Yuji can do is punch things, but Yuji doesn't need anything else. Yuji's like whole toolkit is that he's the best at punching things, right? Similar to I guess Toji and Maki. He's often compared to Maki because of his insane ability to punch. Like even Yuta considers like when he fights Yuji and he tries to kill Yuji, Yuta thinks it was never going to be easy to take down Yuji because he was Gojo's like pupil. With Gojo himself like noting that like Yuji has the potential to even surpass him. Granted, that's probably including like Sukuna's power, but even Sukuna's power like plays into Yuji's strengths, right? It's like heavily implied that Sukuna's just not going to let Yuji die. A, because Yuji now contains the vast majority of Sukuna's power, and B, without a body, Sukuna would never be able to execute his Megumi plan that he has cooking up. Like he says, the game has changed. He makes a binding vow with Yuji to be in his body, right? Or to take control of his body when he needs to. Letting Yuji die would like invalidate that binding vow and would like completely negate the point of ever making it. So he clearly does need Yuji to stay alive, and he's also like invested in Yuji's growth. He's even disappointed when Yuji loses to someone he considers inferior to Yuji. So Sukuna definitely has like some level of I guess attachment would be a poor word, but I'm going to use it anyway. He has some level of attachment to Yuji, and we know that Sukuna can revive Yuji if Yuji were to ever die. He's done it before and he could probably do it again. If you want to say that, oh, you're just judging him off of Yuji alone, Yuji alone is currently in like 180 by 186. He has statements like Yuta considering him to be Yuji was never going to be easy to beat, with him noting that even while saying that Yuji was holding back, Yuta notes that it was never going to be easy to defeat Yuji in that state. And you could say that, oh, he was just trying to kill him and get the reverse curse energy off at the same time. But it's to the point where he doesn't think, it's like kind of implied that he doesn't think he can do that with his base form. I say base form. He doesn't think he can do it by himself, and that he seems to almost need to pull out Rika to stop Yuji, who's like not even really like trying against him. He's like actively nerfed and like holding back and trying to die in that fight, and he just doesn't feel like he deserves to live. And Yuta like makes a mention of that. He like specifically points that out. You have things like Hikari actually being intimidated by Yuji's like natural durability, how like naturally tanky he is. So Hikari's like punching him, and Yuji's not defending at all. He's just standing there staring at Hikari, and it's like, no, I'm not gonna fight you anymore. I'm not gonna dodge. I'm not gonna block. I'm not gonna defend. And Hikari just starts like pummeling him, and Yuji just gets back up, and Hikari's intimidated by that, and he starts sweating, showing like this kind of nervousness and intimidation because of Yuji's natural power. And he finds that to be or at least it's implied that he finds that to either be intimidating, scary, or it causes him to be nervous. So him just being a punchy punch dude, well, Hikari in a sense is just a punchy punch dude too. Like all Hikari does is set himself to be immortal and then start punching you. We see that in his Kashima fight, and yet I imagine Hikari is going to be a lot higher on this list. So just saying like, oh, he's a punchy punch guy, he just punches people, my guy, he well, that's all he can do, he can just punch people, is kind of a non-reason. It has nothing to do with how strong Yuji can be. If you want to say that it's like a detracting, he's like less versatile, I know that was one of his criteria, then maybe, but Yuji's versatility comes from his skill and the fact that he can devour other people's skill as he fights them, and that it's implied he can devour that cursed energy control as well, copying people's skill set. He does that to Todo. While fighting Todo, he just devours his skill and essentially absorbs his skill. And Todo implies that he was doing it to his cursed energy as well. Cursed energy control, I should say. That Yuji was like massively improving his cursed energy control as he fought Todo. And that's all shown in Goodwill. It's just like, it's not even like an interpretation, that's just like stated. Aside from the cursed energy control thing, that is inferred. But again, Yuji just punching things is like a non-speak.
Very good at punching, enough so that it can usually make up for his focus skill set, but his focus is a weakness. More powerful Jujutsu sorcerers who don't rely on direct confrontation, such as Shikigami summoners or cursed speech users, will be tough for him to deal with. If he's going to improve, some kind of defense or mobility technique is going to be key. And second, there's Sukuna. As strong and as skilled as Yuji gets, the King of Curses is a perpetual problem for him and an eternal risk. On occasion, Sukuna's presence can be useful, but most of the time the risk of unleashing a second Shibuya incident is going to hold Yuji back from tapping into the fullest extent of his curse energy. Unless he can get a firm handle on a situation, Yuji is going to have a problem going all out for a while. And
it's just like outright stated that he can control all 20 fingers and stop them, suppress them. The reason he's like currently mentally like wiling out right now is because he blames himself for all of those people in Shibuya dying. Like you said, to be fair. But that's more of a mental thing and not like a skill issue or like he's presenting it. It's kind of a false misrepresentation of like the actual information, right? So what Yuji's skill set is he already knows how to deal with Shikigami users. Gojo taught him how to do that. And that's what the Junpei fight is supposed to represent, is that when he fights a Shikigami user, he knows how to defeat that. Him just kind of... I honestly, it's kind of like a non sequitur in a sense. It has no relation. Like, him dealing with like these more versatile characters, that's like shown. He can still do that. Even with Higurama, who literally opens a domain expansion on his face, gets the best possible outcome from that domain expansion, fights Yuji, who's like can't even use any cursed energy, and Yuji still is able to like scrap with him. It should just show you how, even no matter how like that Higurama literally has a sword that instantly kills you when it touches you or when it cuts you. What more could you ask for? And Yuji's still able to deal with that. Look, the versatility is on Yuji's side for his adaptation. Like, it doesn't really matter up to an extent, how versatile you are when compared to Yuji, because he simply just outwits you with his like natural skill. And that's why he's compared to Maki by Yuta. It's like, oh, he's just like Maki. It's because of that like fluid movement he has and that skill. Like, if Yuji is able to duck and weave Yuta, and Yuta is like, this guy is like the same as Maki, he's just bobbing and weaving, and he's extremely skilled, then it should just kind of put into your mind how strong Yuji is as a sorcerer, right? Even his natural body is grade 1 level. Him being at 9 doesn't really make all too much sense, considering that if you're judging it off like versatility, versatility is kind of category dependent, like versatile in what category. If you talk about abilities, then I mean, strictly hack speaking, like I guess he doesn't really have any explicit cast techniques. But if you're talking about like skill wise, Yuji's probably one of the most skilled characters in the entire verse, with the exception of people like possibly Kashimo, Geto, and probably Gojo and Sukuna. There's very few people that are like actually more skilled than Yuji. He's definitely up there in terms of skill with people like Maki, like we said, Yuta just outright compares the two. You can argue Toji, but that's very debatable. The point is that Yuji's just constantly hyped up for how insanely skilled he is and how insanely durable he is. You could have all the hacks you want. Like, you could throw him against Naobito, and he'd probably be able to survive a couple of punches from Naobito. One arm for sure. Like, Megumi was stronger than one arm Naobito. That's just stated. And Yuji was stronger than that Megumi, so Yuji's definitely like nothing to sneeze at. I would not put him a number 9 for sure. This is a very awkward spot to put him at.
Now, before we get into the figures on this list that can give Yuji a run for his money in a fight, we have a question. What do you need in a fight? Yeah, a weapon would be a great start, but there's one thing that keeps everyone safe: plot armor. So be sure to subscribe, punch that like button, and kick the bell. Go ahead and get your own little training arc in. Now on to the next sorcerer. Number 8. Say hello to the first character on the list who hasn't appeared in the anime just yet. Jujutsu High 3rd year, currently suspended following an altercation with the higher-ups. It is Kirara Hoshi.
Don't even need to see his reasoning. This is just instantly wrong, right? I'll tell you what. Kirara was struggling to fight Megumi and Panda. And Megumi was just kind of like pressing her. I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I've read that fight, to be fair. But nothing very interesting happens in it. It's just kind of her like stalemating Megumi and Panda. And Megumi isn't really implied to have gotten that much stronger since the Shibuya self. And Yuji is. Yuji is massively implied to have gotten an extreme amount stronger, with Choso hyping him up as a demon god, something no one else has, by the way. Megumi doesn't have a statement like that. Megumi doesn't have statements like being a demon god. He doesn't have these statements of these cursed energy control that Yuji has. He doesn't have these statements of being like Megumi Maki, in terms of natural skill. He doesn't have that ability to devour skill and devour cursed energy control. He doesn't have these narrative statements and these narrative implications of him being this like unstoppable monster that's coming out of Shibuya. He doesn't have people like Mahito hyping him up, calling him amazing, and being able to do the impossible, right? So in the ISB fight with Mahito actually just outright says that Yuji is so amazing in their fight that he makes you think he can use Black Flash at will, something no other sorcerer can do. Mahito says that. He says that. He says Yuji is that amazing. No one else has that. And arguably, Mahito being the strongest disaster curse, that means a great deal, especially when Megumi's struggling with Dagon, arguably the weakest, although I don't agree that he's the weakest. I think he's like the second weakest. But wherever you place Dagon, weakest or second strongest, that's still vastly more impressive that Mahito says this about Yuji than if Dagon said this about Megumi. That statement alone carries significant weight. And then you have people like Yuta considering Yuji to be difficult. You have people like Akari considering Yuji to be this insane fighter, or this insanely durable fighter. Then you have Higurama, someone who was just an instant grade 1. After like a month of just learning what his technique can do, he became grade 1 level. Yuji's natural body is able to fight that. You have all of these statements. Kirara has nothing. She has nothing. She has a curse technique, and she struggles with Panda and Megumi. All she does. And if you want even more proof of this Yuji over Megumi stuff, Yuji fights Higurama with no cursed energy, and he's able to contend with him. With cursed energy, he should just be massively stronger than Higurama. And Higurama is said by Reggie, the guy who fought Megumi and pushed Megumi to use his domain expansion, and even in his domain was still able to give Megumi a good fight. Reggie, that guy who fought Megumi, says Higurama is stronger than him. He says that. He says Higurama is stronger than himself. The guy Yuji fought is stronger than the guy Megumi fought. And Yuji wins that fight. And Megumi does win, to be fair, but with a great struggle. And Yuji was massively nerfed in his fight, whereas Megumi wasn't. This same Megumi can fight with Kirara. That should just instantly tell you that Yuji is just way stronger than these people. Way stronger than Kirara. Doesn't matter that she has a curse technique. Yuji just run up to her and punch her. She'd probably never even get to activate it. She'd probably get blitzed. He'd literally run up to her faster than she could see him. Like, what? Whoa, what? He'd punch her in the chin. on some Naoya type beat, there's no way to argue that Kirara is stronger than Yuji. More versatile, maybe, she has a curse technique, but then that goes down to what you consider versatile. Do you only consider curse technique to be like versatile? He seems to think that versatility is what's needed to win a fight. But Yuji's demonstrated that even without a curse technique, he can win almost every fight he's thrown into against people that do have curse techniques, against people that have domain expansions. So then, why is Yuji lower on this list? Let's take the benefit of the doubt, right? Let's say he's not actively assuming that his viewer base is stupid, right? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. His viewer base, probably casual viewers, right? My viewers base, they're probably casual viewers. Not really into the whole, like, analytical stuff, right? He seems like a casual viewer, right? Probably doesn't pay that much attention. Just gives it off of a kind of observation type thing. Why make a top 10 list then? Why like try and assess these characters on their abilities to try and see who's stronger, and then not assess them on their actual abilities? Because I agree that versatility is important for a versus battle, but so is how strong you are. Literally how strong you are, how hard you can punch, how fast you can run, how fast you can punch, how durable you are, how much damage you can take, how long you can fight for, how much stamina you have, how much punishment you can take, which is separate from durability. It's endurance, how enduring you are. All of these things account, or should be accounted for, when talking about a versus battle. Or a top 10 list, a who's stronger than who. Obviously this isn't a versus battle, it's more of a ranking, but you can still interpret it that way. You should pay attention to all of these things. Panda and Megumi fighting this person, just because she's year 3 doesn't mean anything, right? Third year, right? Because she's a third year, and Maki's currently a second year. Yeah, Maki's Toji level. Are we gonna say Kirara is stronger than Maki because she's a year older? She's in the third year. Obviously not. No one thinks Kirara is stronger than Toji. At least I hope no one does. So the years don't matter. So we need to assess them on their statistics, their stats, and their abilities. Yes. Yuji doesn't really have any abilities outside of his skill. So we need to assess his skill. What is Kirara's abilities? What are these people's abilities? So that's how you should look at this going forward.
They are a close companion of Fight Club operator and fellow suspended third year, Kinji Hakari, hanging out with him at the Jakinko Fight Club. They even square off with Panda and Megumi to defend the security office when Kinji is located. Kirara might not have the raw power of some of the figures on this list, but they are a skilled sorcerer in their own right. Love Rendezvous is a highly impressive and versatile curse technique. Kirara generates a series of 5 marks based off the Southern Cross constellation. These can be applied to either people or objects, resonating with a target's curse energy. Anyone marked by the technique who doesn't follow the sequence properly cannot approach the latter marks. You can't go from 1 Imai to 5 Gakrux without first reaching marks 2 through 4 in order. Attempting to do so will see you dragged back towards a matching mark instead. Love Rendezvous path: Imai, Acrux, Mimosa, Jinan, Gakrux. This sounds extremely simple and non-threatening until you realize that the marks can be less than obvious. Kirara's fight against Megumi and Panda was an unaided 2-on-1, but the plucky delinquent was able to stall 2 of Jujutsu High's strongest sorcerers with it. Unless the targets follow the sequence properly, any person bearing Kirara's mark will be repulsed from the later marks and dragged towards matching marks with unfortunate results. Given that it affects a target's curse energy, projectile techniques and Shikigami are equally unviable unless made to follow the path. Now imagine what Kirara can do with that ability when working with a larger group of combatants. Mark a strong melee fighter like Itadori or Hakari. Mark enemies with earlier marks and the area you want to protect with higher ones. In RPG terms, this is a near ideal control ability, focusing enemy aggro onto your tanks and keeping more vulnerable fighters safe. If given time to set up on the battlefield, you can use it to force an enemy into a trap. Lay out the path to direct them whatever way you choose, while leaving your own fighters free to move about. While they
So I get what he's kind of pushing now. He's pushing more of like how useful would they be to the wider world of JJK and exercising cursed spirits, right? This list seems to be more of a who's the best exercising cursed spirits. But that's very misleading to say top 10 strongest sorcerers. So I don't... The fact that the title is so completely separate from that idea, I just don't think they're connected at all. So I'm going to continue assuming that he literally means expert number 9 is stronger than number 10. So then why are we talking about Kirara being in a group? Why would Kirara being in a group matter? What happens when she's put into a box with Yuji? What's she gonna do? She's gonna like put Horcrux? Well, she's just gotta first see Yuji, right? What if Yuji's just way faster than her? But he definitely is. Like, he's just way faster than her. How what's she gonna do? She's not gonna have that team element. Sure, when she's paired with other sorcerers, she can be really strong because of her ability, but her herself shouldn't seem very strong. Seems almost pretty weak. Most people wouldn't even consider Kirara to be in the top 10, even with only including people that are alive. It's very generous to even have her in the top 10, let alone number 8. A very interesting placement.
It might be weak alone, the sheer potential power and versatility of Love Rendezvous merits a spot on this list. It has directly been compared to one of the strongest known curse techniques. Put them in the midst of their friends, and Kirara will burn bright. Number 7. Next up, it is Yuji's other brother and the oldest of the 3 incarnate death paintings, Choso. It is
again, this is just outright stated. Well, I say outright stated. It's actually extremely implied. But it is also technically outright stated that Yuji is just stronger than Choso. Just outright stated. Sukuna, a guy who's been around for 1,000 years, basically knows everything there is to know about combat and Jujutsu sorcery, knows what true Jujutsu sorcery is, has one of the most insanely complex domains in terms of construction there is, one with no barrier, has perhaps the single highest knowledge base of Jujutsu sorcery just ever, is completely understanding of everything around him in terms of combat, and is said by Oro to be transcendental to every other sorcerer, and in the Viz is just beyond the potential of every sorcerer, cursed spirit, and strong fighter. He's sitting in Yuji's mind and he says, Choso, how could you lose to Choso, the inferior opponent? How could you lose to such an inferior opponent? Quite literally saying that Choso is weaker than Yuji. So why is Choso above Yuji? It doesn't matter about his cast technique, his various abilities. That actually doesn't matter, right? Because JJK has already addressed this. So in Hidden Inventory, Geto and Gojo are talking, and Geto concurs that, Geto asserts that Gojo is stronger than him now because he improved his cast technique, which for the wider context of JJK means that when a character says one person is just generally more powerful than another, they are including things like cast technique and stats and statistics, like their strength, speed, and durability. Sukuna should know this, because Sukuna is a lot smarter and more combat adept than that Geto, who was like 17 at the time, roughly. Should be way more knowledgeable than that Geto. And he says this about Yuji. In fact, he should know way more about the specifics, because he's so adept, and because he's been around for so much long, and because he lived through the Golden Age. Should be way more adept at this, at assessing strength. And he says Yuji is just stronger than Choso. But let's give the benefit of the doubt, right? It's 186. Let's go on from here. Let's say like it's post Shibuya. Choso seems to think Yuji is stronger than him there as well. Choso seems to think that. So Choso considers Yuji in Shibuya to be impressive. He thinks Yuji is impressive, right? And we know that Yuji is stronger than Choso. So Choso seems to think that people that are stronger than him are impressive. And post Shibuya, right before the Naoya fight, Choso just outright says that Yuji is still impressive to him. He's still stronger than him. And then he talks about how Yuji's become this demon god, and how his cursed energy control is become insane, and how his finesse has become immaculate, essentially. It sounds like I'm hyping up Yuji here, but Yuji's the only really relevant one on this list so far, with Todo capping out Shibuya. So Yuji should just be above, like, to keep this internally consistent, Yuji would just be above this. This isn't like some kind of weird elaborate interpretation either. This is just like shown, this is just stated. You get this from reading the manga. Just read the story. Choso says this, Sukuna says this. I'm not even interpreting it in any way. It's just observable. You just read the manga and you see that, oh, Sukuna says Yuji is stronger than Choso. So why are we putting Choso above Yuji? Doesn't make any sense.
It is unclear if the half-human brothers count as Jujutsu sorcerers, but having inherited the blood manipulation curse technique of the Kamo clan, Choso is close enough. His inhuman physiology in fact gives him a clear advantage over the Kamo clan. As a death painting, Choso naturally converts his curse energy into blood, allowing him to use his curse technique much more freely. His skills speak for themselves. Blood manipulation is a legendarily versatile curse technique with the ability to strike at a distance or reinforce the user's physical form. Choso has been perfecting the art for 150 years. He has developed at least one custom move, Supernova, which causes remote blood explosions following an attack. Even the former Noritoshi Kamo, once a master of blood manipulation, found Choso's strength impressive. This mastery goes beyond training to a hefty combat record. Even with his long-range moves locked on by water, Choso was able to beat Yuji Itadori in hand-to-hand combat.
It's actually not true. That's actually not true. It's stated by Choso that even just 3 punches or 3 attacks from Yuji caused severe damage to him, and he had to risk his own life by using the blood hardening technique, where he turned his skin to like as rock hard, solid essentially. He had to make it completely hard and catch Yuji by surprise, by surprising Yuji, because Yuji thought he needed to put in a certain amount of force to hurt Choso. Punches him, catches him by surprise. Yuji's like, wait, that didn't feel right. And Choso, while Yuji's like stunned by that fact, attacks Yuji, catches him, crushes his like shoulder, and throws an attack into his liver. And even with all this damage, Yuji just keeps coming at him. Choso's like, yeah, these 3 attacks alone, I managed to block some, but these 3 attacks almost killed me. And this is like a severely injured Yuji, who's just come off of like taking like multiple piercing bloods to like the chest, getting like slammed into walls, etc., by Choso. And of course you just have like Sukuna outright saying that he thinks Yuji is stronger than Choso. Be like, oh, well, Sukuna's just wrong then, right? Let's just say Sukuna's wrong. But we know that Yuji actually feels regret at killing Choso's brothers. So you could say the reason he even lost this to begin with is simply because that he wasn't able to put in his all because of that regret of killing Choso's brothers and feeling that remorse for taking them away from him. And that's why you could say that in actuality he's stronger than Choso, but he wasn't able to bring himself to find the resolve to defeat Choso. This is a concept used in other series like Naruto a few times. I think Naruto makes a reference to Sasuke. He's like, oh, it's going to take more than strength to defeat Sasuke, talking about more on a deeper level. It's kind of a similar principle here, is that perhaps Yuji just couldn't find the resolve to defeat Choso. That's a bit more headcanon-y. Definitely more of a narrative thing, but at a fundamental level, it's just stated that Yuji was stronger than him. Yuji's just also devouring his skill at this time and is severely injured, and Choso literally has to risk his own life of developing thrombosis, which is like a fatal disease. If you contract it, it just actually kills you. He has to risk doing that, risk dying, because he thinks Yuji is a greater threat to him than that risk of dying to thrombosis. And this Yuji might not even be going all out against him. Just 3 hits alone almost killed him. So it is definitely a very one-sided battle, I'd say.
He beat Naoya Zenin in one-on-one, with Naoya being a special grade 1 sorcerer and potential clan head. He's gone up against Kenjaku and was only interrupted by Urame's intervention. He has yet to show the raw power level of the higher ranks on this list, but Choso
going against Kenjaku isn't impressive. That might seem like I'm downplaying Kenjaku, like, oh, what do you mean it's not impressive? Kenjaku's like one of the strongest of the vast. What do you mean? Are you always hyping up Kenjaku? The reason it's not impressive is because Kenjaku's never trying. Even in that fight, he's mocking Choso, and he's not even like really fighting him at all. He like kicks him a few times, and then just like starts laughing at him, starts mocking him. He says like, "Aren't you tired?" And he's just kind of toying with them. He's more concerned about Yuji and the growth potential of Yuji, and he expects Yuji to be way stronger and to become even better than he already is than he does about Choso. He's just completely unfazed. Even going out of his way to like compliment Yuji by telling him that he's not easily impressed, but Yuji is impressing him with how durable he is and how tough he is, which is vastly more impressive than pretty much everyone on the list, to be honest. Obviously with exception. Definitely more impressive than Choso. Choso is nothing on that same level of being complimented like that from Choso, and then it's made from Kenjaku, and then it's made consistent by Hikari repeating that compliment, and other characters repeating that compliment to Yuji. Unironically, you can say the only reason Choso beat Yuji is because he caught him off guard a couple times. That's very edgy though, but you can defend that position.
Also has faced legendary Jujutsu sorcerers without fear. Underestimate him at your own peril. Number 6, the new head of the Zenin clan. First Jujutsu sorcerer we meet in the story, and the one-man Ryoma Sukuna wants to keep alive for some reason. It is Megumi Fushiguro. Megumi somehow has both skill and power down almost perfectly. His 10 Shadows technique allows him to draw on a wide variety of Shikigami servants to engage in battle, providing him with options for defense, offense, or transportation. He has proven himself a good tactician, able to combo one Shikigami's moveset into another's on the fly. He can even figure out a complex curse technique while fighting it. He is more than ready to take his enemies head on if he has to though, and can give as good as he gets in hand-to-hand combat. When in need of more raw power, Megumi's domain
so instead I could talk about Yuji some more, but I think I've spoken enough about him. So let's move on to Choso now, and let's start hypebeasting Choso. Choso's stronger than Megumi. He just is. Like, Choso fighting Naoya is more impressive than anything Megumi has ever done. He's never done anything that's more impressive than fighting Naoya. Naoya, Zenin, that Naoya, by the way, goes on to fight Maki, who is verbatim stated to be as strong as Toji Zenin. Verbatim stated. So if you won, you could say Choso to Toji, but that's dicky. That's extreme dicky. Just fighting Naoya though, that Naoya should be faster than Naobito, especially given that he was more adept at using the FPS cast technique. With Naoya being stronger than that Maki? No. Yeah, so he was relative to that Maki that he fought. He was on... this is the better one. This is a better line of scale. We use this line. So, Naoya was unconcerned by Maki's strength. And that was the same Maki that killed Aogi. And Aogi is stated to be as strong as Naobito. He says he is not in any way inferior to Naobito except for his children. The only reason he's inferior to Naobito is because of his children. Maki kills him instantly, but Naoya is able to kind of ragdoll that Maki. And Choso was able to fight that Naoya. Naobito is stronger than Megumi. Would you look at that? That's crazy. Naoya himself, by the way, Naoya's main technique is speed. He's really just a stats-based fighter. He's like a stat stick, right? He uses his technique to get like super fast. And I imagine that if he was alive now, he would probably be pretty high on this list. Technically he is alive, but we're not going to talk about that. I just imagine that he's not taking into account like statistics at all, which is very vague because you'd never be able to determine which of these people are stronger than others. And you'd have to go, you're just kind of assuming that everyone is like an equal level of speed, which is obviously not the case in Jujutsu Kaisen or Shonen in general, because it's demonstrable that people have different speed levels and different strength levels in Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, Yuji from chapter 1 is obviously slower than current Yuji, for instance. Demonstrably. He's able to fight people that would, like hundreds of times faster than that Yuji. He's able to fight extremely tough opponents. Megumi has nothing on that same level as Choso. Megumi fighting Yuji is more impressive than anything Megumi's done, because that Yuji is stronger than Megumi. Even at the start of Shibuya, Yuji's compared to Nanami. Unless you, so if you think that Megumi's like weaker than Nanami, there you go. Choso being stronger than the start of Shibuya Yuji. Yuji at the start of the Shibuya, in terms of speed, was just shown like equal to Megumi. Megumi thinks Yuji is stronger than him in like after Goodwill ends, and that's a statement that's never really been changed explicitly anyway. You'd have to resort to scaling to actually determine that statement has changed. So Megumi himself thinks Yuji is stronger than him. And this is after he has his domain expansion, if I recall correctly. Yuji also fights special grades that are stronger than the ones that Megumi fights, etc., etc. So you have all these lines, these like just kind of clear connections of who's stronger than who in Jujutsu Kaisen. Versatility doesn't... There's too much emphasis in this video being placed on versatility. It is relevant, don't get me wrong. But it's not extremely relevant to the point where entire battles are completely shifted because of it. That would only be true in the case of stats, in the case of speed, in the case of strength, in the case of durability. That's what shifts the power dynamic. That's what allows us to determine who's stronger than who. Very simple. So it kind of feels like watching a kid dip his toes into really cold water and then pulling them right back out. Like you're about to get in there, you're about to jump in, you just pull right back out and nothing comes of it. If you're going to talk about the top 10 strongest sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen, should talk about more things than just the versatility of them. Granted, he does talk about who they fight and what they do, you know, Choso for Kenjaku, but there's context to these things, massive context that's being left out, like Kenjaku not caring in the slightest about that fight, like Naoya underestimating Choso. I don't believe that it was a particularly good fight for Choso, by the way. I just want to clarify that. I was just presenting a line of scaling for Choso. There are multiple of those. I just chose to pick that one, for instance. There are a variety of ways to assert Megumi to be below almost all of these people. Even Kirara, like, Megumi struggled with Kirara. Like, Megumi was, like, you know, putting the hands on her a little bit, but he still had to put the effort in. So why is he like 3 places below her? 3 or 2 places. I wasn't really counting.
Chimera's Shadow Garden boosts his technique further still, providing him with the material to summon multiple enhanced Shikigami and travel freely around the area. As powerful as Megumi is, however, he still has a way to go before reaching his peak. His domain is still roughly formed, not granting the sure hit effect and not forming the proper containment barrier. And the most powerful Shikigami he can summon, Mahoraga, he cannot control. While the 10 Shadows have purportedly been enough to deal with the 6-eyed Limitless wielder in the past, a more experienced Shikigami wielder will have an edge on Megumi for the moment. Number 5. The man with a sword and a plan, Yuta Okotsu is the strongest student of Jujutsu High left standing. His
strongest student of Jujutsu High left standing. Number 5. Very interesting. Very interesting. The statement seems to imply that he thinks Yuta's stronger than Hikari, but I imagine he has Hikari beyond Yuta in this list. So there's already contradicting statements. Yuta, you can argue Yuta to be the strongest. That's it. I'm constantly going back and forth on that with myself and other people when I talk about it. Odo says to Yuta that he's reaching his limit, and if you think this is referring to potential, then Yuta is close to Gojo in terms of power, because Gojo says that he has the potential to surpass himself, right? So if he's close to the maximum of his potential, the limit of his potential, then he should be close to surpassing Gojo, which would be more impressive than anything any other sorcerer has done, Hikari included. If you don't think it's referring to that, then Hikari is probably stronger, Kashima is probably stronger, etc. These people are probably stronger than Yuta. But if you do think it's referring to that, you can definitely make a case for him being number 3, number 2, etc.
Skill set has ludicrous flexibility, but it means nothing without the will to back it up. And Yuta? The dude has will and strength in abundance. First and foremost, there is Rika. Miss Orimoto's spirit may have passed on, but her shadow remains by Yuta's side as the cornerstone of his curse technique. The former Queen of Curses may be the most powerful protector we have seen, fighting alongside Yuta in the culling game against opponents that could annihilate lesser sorcerers with ease. But her presence can empower Yuta in turn. Upon activating his full connection to Rika with the phrase, "Rika, give me everything," Yuta's curse energy goes from potent to near unlimited, leaving him free to pack as much power as he wants into his blows. Yuta may have the most raw curse energy of any combatant on this list. While his copy ability is still not well understood, Yuta has shown himself able to use it on the fly, incorporating enemy curse techniques easily when advantageous and retaining useful ones such as curse speech for later use. While
we actually do know how this curse technique works, or at least it's implied to be known. Rika just has to eat a part of you to absorb your curse technique, and then Yuta can use it while Rika's active. Once Rika's active, he can use the curse techniques he's copied however he wants, but he can only have Rika active for 5 minutes, and that is one of the conditions for him being able to use that copy ability. Viz used to have it as unconditionally copy any curse technique, but with that chapter release, they specifically went back to that chapter and changed it from unconditionally to he can copy curse techniques, which implies heavily that it now has a condition, and Ryu noticing that Rika has to do that, or Rika does that, is implied to be the condition. It is implied to be the condition. It's just Gege's way of delivering what that condition was in a subtle way without explicitly telling us. You can say in Volume 0 that it was unconditional, but Rika works slightly different in Volume 0. Other than that, yeah, Yuta does have near unlimited cast energy. He has bottomless cast energy. It's not actually bottomless, not actually infinite. It's just he has a very vast amount of it, and he can heal himself, etc., etc.
Megami has solid basic hand-to-hand skills. His primary strength is as a tactician, giving orders to the creatures he summons. Yuta is more of a partner with Rika, fighting side by side with her every step of the way. There's just one flaw with this setup. Yuta can only maintain this enhanced connection and thus the height of his power for 5 minutes. He is far from helpless without it, but that link is very much Yuta's ace in the hole. A fight going beyond that timeline is going to push him to his limits, and there are Jujutsu sorcerers at Yuta's level who do not need to worry about such a limitation. Number 4. Too strong for Jujutsu.
I'm very interested in what sorcerers are on Yuta's level. I guess Kinji Hikari? I mean, sure, but I know he showed Nanami in that scene. I hope he doesn't think Nanami's on Yuta's level. That'd be very awkward to have that conversation, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think it's just an edit thing. Oh, it looked cool. I hope he doesn't think Nanami's equal to Yuta.
Hi, it is former third-year Kinji Hakari. Creator of the Jachinko Fight Club and Kira Hoshi's partner in crime, Kinji is a man of passion, living for the fever and excitement of risk. He says what he feels, does what he wants, and will punch Jujutsu officials if he thinks they're wrong, hence his suspension from Jujutsu High. His domain expansion may be one of the strongest on this list. It's certainly involved. To simplify, Idle Death Gamble turns the battle arena into a flashy pachinko game. Attacks trigger a draw, potentially landing a jackpot. It is far less openly potent than most domains we have seen, seemingly focused on flash and distraction. But that jackpot result changes everything. It collapses the domain, but grants Hakari unlimited curse energy. Once it has been hit, Kinji has a full tank for reinforcing his blows, and is able to use reverse curse technique reflexively to heal his wounds, granting him a Wolverine-like healing factor. But wait, it somehow gets better for Hakari. This effect only lasts for the duration of the Private Pure Love Train theme, a total of 4 minutes and 11 seconds. While this seems to put Hakari on a firm time limit, thanks to his unlimited curse reserve, he can manipulate his domain again as soon as the theme starts. So long as he keeps hitting that jackpot, his unlimited curse state remains intact, the healing factor is up, and Hakari becomes all but indestructible. Yuta himself has admitted that Kinji, while worked up, is stronger than him. A second jackpot would allow him to outlast Yuta's Rika connection. While there are many opponents with more versatile skill sets on the list, overcoming Idle Death Gamble essentially requires a KO before Hakari gets his combo going. However, that weakness is something Kinji understands. He has shown himself able to stall opponents very effectively, and is tough even without relying on his domain. He won't be easy prey. So, who can hope to fight the man with unlimited energy?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything there. Like I said, if you interpret that Oro statement, he's probably stronger than Hakari right now. But if you don't, then Hakari's probably stronger. There's nothing really to disagree with there. It's just basic Hakari stuff. Obviously, I'd point to him fighting Kashimo, and Kashimo being like stronger, or around as strong as Ryu. You can point to that and be like, oh, you know, direct scaling. But he should generally be stronger than most of the boss. Yeah, I agree. You can put him around this placement with not too much issue. He's fine.
Well, our top 3 would give even Hakari trouble. Number 3. Actions speak louder than words. Hypothesizing can only get you so far. The best way to test the limits of your ability is a decisive victory over a strong opponent. And nobody has managed a more impressive victory across the run of Jujutsu Kaisen than the new sorcerer killer, Maki Zain.
That is, he must be referred to like the Toji. Okay. I'm not. Before I progress, because this is funny just to look at, I'm already gonna assume he's talking about the Toji Zen and Maki, the one that's like equal to Toji. I don't know why he thinks Maki is like stronger than Yuta and Hakari, because, for instance, both current Yuta and current Hakari are stronger than Volume 0 Yuta. It's just stated that Yuta was training and has gotten stronger since then. He unlocked a main expansion, which obviously requires him to be training as well. And Hakari obviously being stronger than Yuta. Volume 0 Yuta, stronger than, well, is around as strong as Geto. That Geto is stronger than Toji. That's just kind of like outright stated when Gojo himself in that volume literally verbatim says that Geto is stronger than him, or stronger than Lean, and he thinks that like if Geto is gonna declare war on the entire verse, that he has a solid chance of winning. And Geto himself thinks that he has about a 30% chance of fighting the entire verse and winning, Gojo included, all at once by himself. And with Rika, he solo. So pretty indicative of him being stronger than Toji. There are direct lines of scaling, but they're a lot more involved, and I don't need to talk about them here. But in terms of like overall like powers, I don't think you can really say that Maki, who's literally punch kick, something that Yuji was distracted for at the start of this video, is like stronger than Yuta, who can copy curse techniques and has like 8 different curse techniques you can use at any time. It's very odd.
After all, she broke the Zenin clan, one of the greatest forces in the Jujutsu world, a family of fully trained and high-grade Jujutsu sorcerers, two military groups, the Kukuru unit and the Hei, the latter entirely composed of grade 1 sorcerers. They were annihilated in a brutal 3-chapter onslaught, all at the hands of a woman without one speck of cursed energy. Mai sacrificing her life lifted all limits on Maki's heavenly restriction, dramatically increasing her strength and speed. In her current state, Maki's superhuman reflexes make a mockery of the Zenin frame projection inherited technique, being able to view each of the technique's 24 movements per second and matches Noya's supersonic speed. While her enhanced strength is more difficult to track, we can get some idea of Maki's other abilities from her earlier duel against her.
This has no relation, but I just find it really funny that he's talking about like Maki humiliating like the projection sorcery, and then starts showing all the pages of Naoya beating the life out of Maki. That's just funny to me. It's not like a detraction from his argument or anything. It's just really funny to me that he shows Maki just getting body slammed onto the like ground on some like WWE type shit. Just how getting like suplexed and like bullied and just kicked around, and he's like, yeah, Maki was shitting on them. It's just funny to me.
Her father, Ogi Zenin. Even without her full power, relying solely on skill and smarts, Maki is able to break the sword of a veteran grade 1 sorcerer. If Maki's strength and reflexes prior to her power-up allowed her to roughly equal her father, it reinforces how much further she has gotten now. Enough to kill Ogi in an instant. Somewhere Toji Fushiguro is looking down on the smoldering remains of the Zenin clan stronghold and busting a gut over this, as he very well should. Rest well, Toji, your successor is here, and the Jujutsu world will tremble at her shadow. Number 2. The man, the myth, the legend himself who can beat just about anyone, even while blindfolded. Satoru Gojo is the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerer to an extent.
Very interesting that he was Gojo. I'm not gonna like comment because I don't really care about Gojo's 201. I have my own opinions on that. I just find it's actually just like extremely rare for people to put Gojo as like the second strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. They almost always have him at the top. So respectable opinion here. Dubs, I guess. Really standing out from the rest of the tree here, I guess. And I just find it very interesting that he's one of those people that would move Gojo to 2. You don't really see that from many casual viewers of Jujutsu Kaisen. They usually almost always concur that Gojo is at number 1, so props for moving Gojo down to 2, I guess. Very unique opinion. Not many people hold that stance.
That borders on surreal. He holds both of the Gojo clan's inherited techniques, the 6 eyes, allowing him to draw upon the limitless to its fullest extent, unlimited in terms of power required or precision. It was theorized that his birth increased the power of all curses to compensate. When Satoru Gojo was born, the balance of the world was altered. The raw power of his cursed energy is off the charts, but let's go over exactly why fighting this man is such a goddamn headache. Gojo's most basic technique, Infinity, makes him impossible to hit, warping space to slow anything coming towards him to a standstill. Reinforcing it into Curse Technique Lapse Blue or Reverse Curse Technique Red allows him unparalleled battlefield control, repelling or pulling everything in the area to a single point with catastrophic force. Combining the two results in Hollow Technique Purple, a devastating blast of pure energy that leaves the battlefield a ruin. And all of this is backed by effectively unlimited Curse Energy, thanks to the 6 eyes lowering his Curse Energy expenditure to almost 0. He can teleport, he can blast you into nothing. And if you somehow have the physical strength or reflexes to endure against Gojo, his domain expansion, Unlimited Void, strikes his foes mentally, forcing them to process infinite stimuli and leaving them unable to act. No amount of strength can get you past this effect. The only way out is direct physical contact with Gojo, and thanks to Infinity, that is not happening if you are his opponent. The one time we've seen Satoru push to his upper limit is during the Shibuya incident. Kenjaku's tactics against him demonstrate Gojo's strength. While the forces fought their hardest against Satoru, going all out with their strongest attacks, Kenjaku only expects him to buy him 20 minutes. Even that relied heavily on psychological manipulation, ultimately forcing him to sacrifice innocent lives to proceed. When he was forced to confront Gojo personally, Kenjaku's plan remained focused on stalling him and relied on a technicality of Prison Realm's function to succeed. He might be sealed away, but Gojo's shadow—
I don't know where that technicality stuff is coming from. That was all planned. He knew exactly what was going to happen. from the start. He like almost like directly says it. Even when he walks up to Gojo, he expects Gojo to be having this like mental breakdown upon seeing Geto, because he knows about the relationship between them. He has all of those memories. That's why he introduces himself as Suguru Geto and not just like, oh, I'm just some dude in a brain. It's because he was preying on that psychological connection between the two of them in order to stall. Like you were saying, he was just stalling for President Realm to work, but all of it was planned. It wasn't by chance the way he's implying it here. Kenjaku definitely planned that out, and we know he can plan stuff like that out because just on the spot he was able to plan the entire Junpei arc from start to finish just by seeing Junpei. So give him a year, and yeah, you can imagine how he could plan out Gojo's being sealed.
Hangs over Jujutsu Kaisen. When you think of powerful sorcerers, he is the one to beat.
Oh, it's also just like stated he was like coveting those exact circumstances, which like implies that, you know, he wanted those exact circumstances and he got them, so his plan worked.
So why isn't he number one? What's the weak point that holds the unstoppable man back from the pinnacle of Jujutsu sorcery? We'll get to that, but first, some extra contenders who have their own claims to greatness. Honorable mentions. First up is Sukuna. We have not witnessed him at full power just yet. While a 20-finger Unleashed Sukuna would be a contender for the number one spot,
it's stated that he's stronger than the entire verse. Unironically. It's just stated. I'm not even joking. I'm not dick riding. I'm not dick eating. It's just actually stated. They just outright say that Sukuna is beyond the potential power of any sorcerer, any cursed spirit, and any strong fighter in general. None of them can hope to reach Sukuna's level because of his overwhelming sense of self, his selfishness, and his likeness to a calamity, to a natural disaster, as described in the fan book and in the manga. Sukuna isn't a sorcerer. He's a natural disaster. He is so strong that he is viewed as a cursed spirit because they just cannot perceive him as a sorcerer. We know he is a sorcerer, but people didn't perceive him that way. Even in the Golden Age, when sorcerers were braver and more vicious and far more willing to fight, like Kashimo, people who are stronger than Kashimo, because the Golden Age predates Kashimo and was the pinnacle of Jujutsu sorcery and the pinnacle of curse techniques, which he puts a lot of value in, by the way. Don't forget that. He puts a lot of value in this. And Sukuna is at the top, the undisputed king of the Golden Age, soloed the entire Golden Age, stated in early JJK that he beat them all by himself. The strongest era of Jujutsu sorcerers, defeated by Sukuna. Why is he an honorable mention? Unless you try to say, like, you can't even argue Kenjaku's stronger than Sukuna, to be honest. I mean, he's definitely smarter, but the Sukuna's so random and so unpredictable that you might not even be... Kenjaku's main strength, his intelligence, might not even be able to work.
But all we have for now is his capability while sealed within Yuji. There's also a number of elder Jujutsu sorcerers we haven't seen at their full power.
Oh, and for just for clarification, that's how that Golden Age Sukuna is massively weaker than the current Sukuna, because every day his fingers get much stronger, all of them, and Sukuna himself inside of Yuji is also getting stronger every day. 1,000 years of that, he should be much stronger currently than he was back then.
Gakuganji, Uraume, and Tsukumo are all likely potential contenders for the list if they decide to step into the field more directly. Toge Inumaki is in a similar boat. His cursed speech is an amazingly versatile technique. It can eliminate cursed spirits in mass, stop his opponents dead in their tracks, or simply knock someone out. Unfortunately, while we have seen a fair amount of what his powers can do, Inumaki hasn't gotten into an extended solo fight since the events of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. What we have seen since suggests he might be a contender, but there isn't enough evidence of his power yet to place him on this list. Culling game participants are wildcards. We have seen one battle from each of them so far. While their movements have been impressive, they have mostly been faced with enemies who place highly on this list. They could merit a spot if they come back and we get a firmer idea of their relative power level. Specifically, we should note those who achieved high scores within the game: Kashimo, Higaruma, and Ishigori, who amassed 200, 102, and 77 points respectively. Finally, there is the devil of sorcery, Kenjaku. While potentially able to go toe-to-toe with anyone on this list, curse spirit manipulation means he is reliant on how many curse spirits he currently has on hand. Geto.
Kenjaku had 10 million curse spirits. And he thought he could release all of them, and he was still stronger than the Culling Games. Just think about that. He released 10 million curse spirits into Japan. Over 10 million. Just released them from his grasp. Think curse spirits like Kurorushi, who was actually able to like cut and injure Yuta, was just one of his curses. Had millions of them. He can absorb all of their curse techniques, like he absorbed Mahito's. Can change souls. Has all of these curse techniques, can spam them, can drop all of them all at the same time on one opponent. So, good luck copying them, Yuta. 10 million curse techniques. Drops all of them on you at the same time. Or could throw them all into Maximum Uzumaki and just delete you from existence, just vaporize you. He's the most versatile character in the entire show. He is the most intelligent character in the entire show. He precogged and manipulated the entire verse. The verse literally plays out the way it did because of him. Everything in the entire story was a manipulation by Kenjaku, and that's very heavily implied. But he's only an honorable mention. Same with Sukuna. So I'm very interested in who they have at number 1.
Utilized 4,461 curses he had with him to power Uzumaki in his final battle with Yuta. Impressive, but that is closer to 2/3 of his full capacity. He had already unleashed at least 2,000 curses against Shinjuku and Kyoto, lowering his power for their confrontation. More recently, failing to learn from Geto's mistake, Kenjaku released an extremely large number of spirits at the climax of the Shibuya incident. He may have unleashed as many as 10 million before departing. Some of those come from the ripple effect of mass idol transfiguration, but at least some have been released directly from Geto's collection. Unless we have confirmation Kenjaku's reserves are back in place, we can't be sure of his power level and thus his rank. Now for our...
So, like I just said, he thinks he can just do that. He can just release that many, and it just has no effect. He just doesn't care. He can just do that. Which shows you that even 10 million curses don't mean anything to him. They just don't mean anything to him. Because he can release them all. Just doesn't care. That's insane to think about. Insane.
Final pick, number 1. Satoru Gojo cannot change the world. He is the most powerful Jujutsu sorcerer. Everyone speaks his name in fear. There isn't a single fighter on this list who could safely deal with Infinity, let alone the more powerful techniques of Limitless. But even with his mastery of Jujutsu, Gojo as a person is largely defined by what he can't do. He can't change the minds of Jujutsu higher-ups. He can't stop every cursed spirit. He can't even save one everyday girl from a bullet and it eats him up. Gojo stands as a testament to the fact that raw power alone is not enough to accomplish anything. In his defense, he's worked on that. Gojo's role as a teacher in Jujutsu High is his way of trying to affect change, inspiring the next generation to do better and create wider progress in Jujutsu society. He knows what needs to happen to accomplish his goals, but he cannot do it alone. Can't change everything by himself, short of just giving up and killing everyone he meets. Master Tengen, meanwhile, can change the world more fundamentally. All he would have to do is simply stop.
What? Master Tengen? What? I was not expecting that. What? I was not expecting that. What? I have to think about that for a second. Why? What? We'll just watch.
Maintaining the barriers and seals that have kept Japan safe since ancient times. Stop caring about the fate of the world. This ancient sorcerer is largely responsible for maintaining the Jujutsu world status quo. His barriers defend Jujutsu High, keep as many cursed objects as possible safely contained, and support the work of other sorcerers. At least 2 groups have attempted to use Tengen to upend the Jujutsu world and were willing to go up against the Jujutsu establishment to do so. Following these events and the loss of the Star Plasma vessel, Tengen's form shifted, leading to his current state of near transcendence, only possessing a physical body due to his barrier techniques. Kenjaku is planning to use that transcendent state to trigger a mass awakening of the human race as Jujutsu sorcerers by merging them with Tengen. While Gojo may be capable of such feats in theory, we have yet to see his powers hit a global scale like this. Such is the price of transcendence. Gojo is powerful.
Okay, so I get what he's arguing. Because Tengen is close to transcendence, that he's like stronger than everyone else. Small issue. Just a teeny tiny thing. It's Tengen himself says that Kenjaku would one-shot him. He'd one-shot him. Just walk up to him and absorb him. And he can only do that when he's 2 grades stronger than you. He has to be stronger than you to do that. Has to be 2 whole cursed rankings above you. Like if Tengen was a grade 1, a grade 4, Kenjaku would have to be a grade 2 to absorb him. It'd just have to be that strong. And Tengen says that. He's like, yeah, he could just walk up to me and absorb me. Just with his skill level, you just walk up to me and just instantly absorb me. Nothing I can do about it. That's why he has Choso and Yuki stay behind to guard him. Because he's afraid that Kenjaku is going to walk up to him and absorb him just off rip. But he's the strongest. He's the strongest, right? Because he's near transcendence. I guess Kenjaku's near transcendence as well. Because he's stronger than him. If you just mean the things he can do, if you just mean the fact that he can like merge all of humanity together, that's not something he himself can do. That's something Kenjaku is going to use him for. Because he can merge with anyone, Kenjaku plans to have him merge with everyone. And that's something Kenjaku can do. Not Tengen himself. It's something, it's almost like a component. It's like a cog in a machine. The cog doesn't share the same function as the entire machine itself. And that's kind of the analogy we're going to go with. Tengen just being a cog in Kenjaku's machine. Sukuna's stronger than Kenjaku, at least power-wise. Tengen has nothing. Tengen's not strong. Tengen just has a certain kind of existence to him. He doesn't really have any cursed techniques. Doesn't have any speed, strength. Doesn't have anything like he's everywhere, and yet he's nowhere, sure. And he is the most powerful barrier user. In terms of using barriers, he's not the strongest barrier user. He's the strongest at using barriers. With Kenjaku being second. And yet, he can't make a barrier that's strong enough to keep Kenjaku out. But Kenjaku can make a barrier strong enough to keep him out. That's stated. So I have no idea why Tengen's at the top, even with his reasoning. It really doesn't follow. In fact, even in hidden inventory, young Gojo and Geto think they could actually like jump Tengen and beat him, which is very interesting. You can take that however you want. I'm not going to make any conclusion from it. I'm not going to say anything about it, but just note that they do say that. So, very interesting. I'll let this video finish up and then we'll wrap up.
But Tengen is power. Gojo strives to change the status quo, Tengen strives to preserve it. While Gojo would likely win in a fight, Tengen's achievements and significance give him a status and importance to the world that outweighs even Satoru. Which is why Master Tengen is the greatest Jujutsu sorcerer of all, as
he's measuring their power or how strong they are based off their status. By like the same logic, you would say that like, oh, Naobito is like one of the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers because his clan hypebeasts him and like love him and like just parade him as like super fast and super strong. Doesn't mean anything. Like cloud. This is like a top 10 most clouded sorcerers. This is not the strongest sorcerers. This is clouded sorcerers. Like that last line literally just completely erases this entire like the meaning behind everything he said up to this point. I hope that was like a misspeak, and not something like he actually like dead ass thinks, because that is it. That just kind of betrays his entire video and everything he'd argued up to this point. I don't know. But if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for notifications on my next videos. Like I said at the start, I have a new video on the way. One that's going to be edited, and it's going to be a pretty interesting topic. I got a certain collab with certain Naruto fan. And we're going to talk about some stuff. JJK and Naruto. Look forward to that collab. My name has been Cursed Valor.